So Justin Trudeau, who's on his way out, used to be very popular. I mean, he still has his fans, 3. And they may be asking, why did you turn on him? Because, you know, you were part of his government. What
9
was
years
it?
in.
And also, what would you do differently? And if you watch the election here, don't ever say, nothing comes to mind. That's the bad answer to that one. What would you do differently?
Well, you know, with the prime minister, I think every politician has their sell-by date, and that's part of what happened. But I think the other thing that happened is my party, we're actually called the Liberal Party, and I am an old school liberal.
The hell?
And liberals in Canada win when we are focused on people and on what they need in their lives. And we lose when people think that we're focused on virtue signaling and identity politics.
Speaking of saying crazy things, Freeland went on Bill Maher. She, gosh, I hope she finds who's been in charge all these years and asks them what's going on. She's, I don't know which one we want to start with. Do we want to start with her, like, renouncing the wokeism of the liberal policies? Or do we want to go to Bill taking her to task?
Can we do both? Do we have time for both, Sheila? Because
I would love
gold.
to.
Okay.
I would love to. Do we have the wokeism one first? Did I put you on the spot?
All right. And by the way, to what you said earlier.
No, we've got the climate change one, but there's one where Freeland, I know, let's show the climate change one where he actually takes Freeland to task on Ottawa's ridiculous green energy policies. While we're watching that, if you wouldn't mind finding the one where she Freeland is sick of the virtue signaling, if you wouldn't mind.
Works for me.
Let's watch this one first.
I saw recently, I think it was last week, Ottawa, I see, is trying to pass a law limiting the amount of time you can idle your car. Now, I've been in Canada in the winter. It's pretty fucking cold out there.
That's why we used to have snowbirds before we decided we didn't want to spend our money in the United States.
And I don't think this, I mean, the reasoning is it's going to put a dent in global warming. I don't think it is. That you can only idle your car for a minute, I think remotely, in 3 minutes if you're in it, before you can get going to warm it up. This just pisses people off. And it looks like, as in America, they still haven't gotten the memo that this shit don't work. So you're against that kind of stuff, right?
Look, Bill, I have got the menu. I have received the memo, to be a polite Canadian. I have received the memo, sir.
Yes.
And, you know, politicians win when they listen to people sincerely and hear what people are saying to them about their lives. And politicians lose when we think we are smarter than the people we work for. And when we think our job is to lecture people. That's not how democracy works.
People don't like bossy and they don't like snobs.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm always trying to tell the left. Okay.
Although,
Yeah, they don't like bossy
That's
and
the
they
one.
don't like snobs. I'm surprised she didn't say, why are you looking right at me, Bill? And I'm happy Bill Maher didn't get arrested by Uncle Fester of the RCMP for having the temerity to ask an impolite question. But that stupid, flippant answer, another liberal lie, Sheila, when she was answering the idling query by saying, well, we used to have snowbirds, but now that we're boycotting the U.S., Sheila, are there any snowbirds boycotting the U.S.? And as a matter of fact, several years ago, it used to be you could leave the country as a snowbird. I think it was for 6 months. And they've actually increased the time. I believe it is 8 months. So far from snowbirds retracting and flying home to the frigid Great White North, they're spending more time in Florida and Arizona and California. This woman can't tell the truth, Sheila.
And politicians lose when they lecture people? That's all this woman has done. Her like entire time, she's lectured us about what it means to be a Canadian in a very specific kindergarten lectury voice. Canadians know, and Canadians understand, and we all know, and we all understand. No, lady, the only person who doesn't seem to understand what's going on here is you. But she always lectures Canadians. You know, they don't like snobs. She's one of the snobbiest broads in Ottawa. She's telling us that we don't need to drive cars because she doesn't drive a car. That's a very snobby, elitist worldview, given that the rest of us don't live in this little tiny Toronto bubble like she does.
But Sheila, that's another lie. I even know the model of car she drives. She drives a Volkswagen. She sometimes shows up with herself behind the wheel. I don't know why.
She doesn't own that, though. That's what she said. I don't own a car. No, we do. We own the car. We give it to you to drive. So she, again, very privileged based on her role in government to say, well, I don't need to own a car, so you don't have to. Yeah, but you're not against cars. You either have a driver or you rent one and get speeding tickets, or you have one taxpayer-funded one provided to you.
Well, who owns that Volkswagen?
We do.
Oh, okay. So wait a minute. There are no made in Canada vehicles that she could drive. I can tell you Lexus, Honda, Toyota, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, they're all here. They're all making made in Canada vehicles. Why is that? Why is that not on the procurement list? Forget about when all this tariff talk began, Sheila. Why wasn't that part of the process in the first place?
David, I can't even get these ridiculous hypocrites to buy electric vehicles. I went through their ministerial vehicles and there was like 4, which was probably about right given like the extrapolation to the Canadian population. That was probably about right. But they had about 4 that were a hybrid or hybrid electric. And then when we inquired about why they didn't have more electric or hybrid electric vehicles, they said, well, or smaller, more fuel efficient cars, because a lot of these are SUVs. They said, well, we need something safe. We're on the road all the time. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Us too.
Sheila, that is so perverse because they're making the case against electric vehicles. So, there's that Australian instrument, Avi Yamini would know what I'm talking about. It's very complicated because you have to suck and blow at the same time. So they're saying, please save the planet by driving an EV. They're investing tens of billions with a B, billions of dollars into white elephant battery plants. And then when it comes to show me the money, we can't because it's a safety issue?
Yeah, we want something safe and reliable on the road. And I was like, exactly why I chose the vehicle I chose. Exactly why we don't want your stupid electric vehicle mandate, which still stands at least until the Liberals are removed from government. Like, why would their reasons for choosing the vehicles they drive be any different than the ones Canadians families have? But they live in their little bubble, so the rules don't apply to them. There's one more very lovely clip. Again, the woman has it's like she is hard of remembering the last 9 years in the Liberal government, that like her misperception of herself is wild. She says that Liberals lose elections when they focus on virtue signaling and identity politics.
So Justin Trudeau, who's on his way out, used to be very popular. I mean, he still has his fans, 3. And they may be asking, why did you turn on him? Because, you were part of his government. What
9
was
years
it?
in.
And also, what would you do differently? And if you watch the election here, don't ever say, nothing comes to mind. That's the bad answer to that one. What would you do differently?
Well, with the Prime Minister, I think every politician has their sell-by date, and that's part of what happened. But I think the other thing that happened is my party, we're actually called the Liberal Party, and I am an old school Liberal.
The hell?
And Liberals in Canada win when we are focused on people and on what they need in their lives. And we lose when people think that we're focused on virtue signaling and identity politics.
So the same thing that sunk the party here in America when they went too far left. And that's the impression I got from Justin Trudeau. Why did he go and become one of those elitist type of scolds who looked like he was just overbearing, that sort of left-wing overbearingness?
That's what Freeland is.
Exactly.
That's what Freeland is too, though. Like, in 9 years, she never once spoke up to a Canadian audience about virtue signaling. Not even once. In fact, she was one of the fiercest of them all. If anybody directed criticism at her, it was because I'm a woman. Not because I'm completely inept and I destroyed the economy. Because I'm a woman. Anybody who was critical of her, they were the Nazis, not Freeland standing with the Nazi scarf, celebrating a Nazi in the House of Commons. She called people names. She froze their bank accounts. She never once, even if she disagreed with the virtue signaling, instead of being one of the biggest proponents of it, did you ever hear her speak up even once against it? Not even for a second.
No, 100%, Sheila. And by the way, please, Sheila, on the Nazi file, don't forget to mention her grandfather being a Nazi propagandist.
Right.
You know.
I was going to make a joke about that when you were talking about the Volkswagen car she chose. But I felt like it was a little too on the nose. So I just let it go.
But Sheila, another lie, when she describes herself as an old school liberal, to me, an old school liberal means classical liberal.
Yeah.
This party it's not comprised of classical liberals. I mean, today in Canada, if you're a classical liberal, you're pretty much a conservative. These are Marxists. These are virtue signalers. And for her to describe herself as that, it's just absolutely outrageous. But I guess all that stuff that she's been enduring for 9 years. What did Roger Clemens say during the steroid investigations when he was caught in a lie? Oh, yeah, she's misremembered. Yeah. Right. I never even knew that was a word, but there you go. Works for her too, like it did for Roger.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.